One of the books, or our fall book that we're reading today, is called Too Many Pumpkins. So this time of year is when you start seeing the pumpkins coming around. So we're going to start talking about things that happen in fall in our read-alouds. Maybe you've already noticed it's been a little bit different in our read-alouds. But this one's called Too Many Pumpkins. And at the end, you're going to comment with who the main character was. And I want to know her name. So pay close attention. That's a tiny detail, but it's one you need to know. Too Many Pumpkins. Every year at springtime, Rebecca Estelle planted just enough seeds in her garden to grow vegetables for the long winter. She planted carrots and beans, tomatoes and peas, corn and rutabagas. She grew a little bit of everything, except pumpkins. Rebecca Estelle hated pumpkins. When she was a little girl, money had been scarce. For an entire month, all there was to eat were pumpkins. Baked pumpkins, steamed pumpkin, boiled pumpkin, stewed pumpkins, mashed pumpkin, rotten pumpkins. Breakfast pumpkins, lunch pumpkins, and dinner pumpkins. Enough pumpkins. When everything finally improved and there was more money to buy food, Rebecca Estelle decided she would never eat pumpkins again, or even look at one. Not ever. And she didn't. Until one autumn day, long after Rebecca Estelle's hair had turned snowy white, she was raking leaves that fell each fall from the black walnut tree, and her cat, Esmeralda, was scattering them just as quickly. All of a sudden, the pumpkin truck passed by. Oh, she heard it coming, and she knew what it was. It rumbled by at harvest time every year. She turned her back and concentrated on picking up the fallen leaf. She managed to ignore the truck until, splat! An enormous pumpkin tumbled off the truck and smashed into the slimy orange smithereens all over the edge of her yard. "Come back here and get this pumpkin," she yelled. But the driver sped away. "Well, I won't touch it," Rebecca Estelle insisted, getting her shovel from the barn. "I won't look at it," she added as she shoveled dirt on top of the pumpkin pieces. "I won't think about that pumpkin ever again," she declared. And she didn't until spring, when Rebecca Estelle was admiring the new sprouts in her garden. She noticed Esmeralda playing with some big green leaves growing at the edge of the yard. "How curious," she said, going over to inspect them. "I didn't plant anything here." Did she plant something there? Then Rebecca Estelle remembered the pumpkin truck and the slimy pumpkin smithereens. "Pumpkins!" she cried in disgust. "Come out of there, Esmeralda. I will not water these pumpkins. I will not tend them. I will ignore them and they will die." She picked up Esmeralda and stomped inside. But a week later, when Rebecca Estelle peered out the window, she noticed that the vines had grown. She tramped into the barn, got her garden tools, and went to work on the pumpkin vines. She cut and dug until there was not one left growing. "There now, there will be no pumpkins." She smiled and went back inside. But the next week, when she was weeding the garden, she noticed that the pumpkin vines had grown back. Rebecca Estelle marched inside, snapped the curtains shut. "The only thing to do is ignore them. They won't grow if I don't take care of them," she muttered. So rain or shine, all spring and summer, she never looked out the front window. She used only the back door and never even glanced towards the vine. Neither did Esmeralda. Rebecca Estelle ignored the vine so well that she had forgotten why she wasn't using the front door until one autumn day. She and Esmeralda went to rake the leaves that fell each fall from the black walnut tree in front of the house. "Pumpkins!" Rebecca Estelle screeched. Pumpkin vines had twirled under the bushes and the bird bath, through the front porch rails, and onto the rocking chair. The entire yard was a sea of plump, round pumpkins. Rebecca Estelle could no longer ignore them. She plopped down on the pumpkin nearest her, putting her hands over her face. "What will I ever do, Esmeralda?" she cried. "How will I get rid of this many pumpkins?" She thought and she thought. Her mind went back to the pumpkins she had eaten as a girl, when pumpkins were all the only food her family had. "Well, we can't let them stay here," said Esmeralda. "Some people might need these pumpkins, and I suppose there are folks crazy enough to like them. We'll give them away." She marched to get her wheelbarrow. Rebecca Estelle shrugged to lift the first pumpkin, the second, and the third. She puffed and puffed as she wheeled and loaded wheelbarrow onto the lane. "I'm too tired to deliver these heavy pumpkins now," Rebecca Estelle grumbled. She mopped her brow with her apron and wondered what to do next. "Perhaps I will make them into pies. They would be easier to deliver. Such a nuisance." She went to work. She scooped the slimy seeds out of the pumpkins. She cut away the shells. She boiled the pumpkin meat. She mixed it with eggs and milk and sugar and flour, cinnamon, nutmeg, and clove to make rich pies. Then Rebecca Estelle made pumpkin tarts, pumpkin muffins, pumpkin cake, pumpkin bread, pumpkin pudding, pumpkin cookies, until the pumpkin dishes spilled out of every cupboard, drawer, and cubbyhole, and the seeds were a mountain in the corner. "Well, that's for the first batch," Rebecca Estelle said, dusting her floury hands. "Now to deliver them." She put the wheelbarrow outside the kitchen door, and she loaded it with all the pumpkin treats. When it was full, she thought of delivering all those pumpkin dishes made Rebecca Estelle tired. "If only people would come to get them," she said. Then she had an idea. Rebecca Estelle whirled around and hurried back into the house for her kitchen knife. "This should get people to come," Rebecca cried. She took her knife out and set in the middle of the pumpkin patch. She carved a smiling face and a nice round pumpkin, a scary neighborhood snaggletooth face on the tall, thin pumpkin, Boo on a short, squat pumpkin. She was so busy carving pumpkins, she could hardly notice how dark it was getting. When she could no longer see, she went to a shelf on the back porch and got a sack of candles that she kept for emergencies. "If this doesn't get people to come here, we'll have to deliver them all ourselves," she muttered to Esmeralda. "Oh, look at all those." Rebecca Estelle peered into the darkness. For a long time, she didn't see anything. She sat still and watched until finally she saw a light, faint at first, then brighter as in even more lights bobbing through the night. "Here they come," she shouted. Esmeralda, let's heat the apple cider." Young and old, everyone in town came. "Rebecca Estelle, we thought you hated pumpkins," they said. "We saw your jack-o'-lanterns at the end of the road and came for a closer look." "I was hoping you would," said Rebecca Estelle. "Where did you ever find all these pumpkins?" people asked. "I came by them quite by accident," Rebecca Estelle said, smiling. "Would you like some pumpkin pie? There's plenty." She winked at Esmeralda. Everyone enjoyed the pumpkin pie and the cider and had a good time. So did Rebecca Estelle. And when they were all ready to go home, she made sure each one carried a jack-o'-lantern, a bag of seeds for roasting, and a pumpkin treat. Rebecca Estelle gave away everything that reminded her of the pumpkins she had always hated, until all that remained was a handful of seeds. Those she tucked snugly in her pocket, and they would be safe until planting next spring. So, there was a main character in this book. What was her name? Can you post a comment and remind me what her name was? Good job. Readers pay attention to even the littlest details.
I couldn't hear.
So, make sure that you always pay attention and remember the names of the characters. All right. Bye, guys.